Heath? Good, how about you? Yeah? Does it still feel really hot in here?
No, it feels comfortable, right?
Okay. It's hot outside.
It's rush hour. Is this going to be the roof tonight?
I didn't hear from Jason, but Steve will not be here, and obviously Tom won't be here. So, yeah, 6:30.
Good evening. We're going to call the meeting to order for the City of Walker Planning Commission. First item on the agenda are the meeting minutes from June 1. Do I hear a motion regarding the minutes?
Make a motion
Support.
to accept.
Motion by Pat, supported by Tyler to approve the minutes of June 1. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. This is an opportunity for general public comment. If you want to offer comments on non-agenda items, this is a good opportunity to do so. No takers? We'll move right into the public hearing on preliminary area site plan amendment request to allow industrial uses on lots within the Walkerview development, and look to Tricia Anderson, our planning director, to introduce the project.
Thanks, Terry. So this is a PASP amendment, preliminary area site plan amendment. And the action requested by the Planning Commission tonight is to review the proposed amendment to the Walkerview IPUD that would allow for MH or heavy industrial uses on lots I-5, I-6, and I-7, and to grant approval with conditions, or tabling of the request. And the subject property is 1920 Northridge. The applicant has already combined, or they've done a boundary change of a few different parcels to get it to where it is now. And we're looking at 25.63 acres, and the zoning district is the Walkerview IPUD. Future land use designation is enterprise within the Northwest Neighborhood Cluster. General location is the southeast corner of Northridge Drive and the Walker Avenue. Well, that's not quite the location, the general location. I think that carried over from a different report. But it's on the Northridge, it's on Northridge Drive, just east of the hotel and the surgical center and ophthalmology center, across from where the FedEx building is. Oops. And we have Justin Longstreth of Bruggink with us tonight on behalf of the owner, Transport Properties, and it looks like we have some representatives from Transport Properties with us as well. So looking at the Walkerview preliminary area site plan, it's been amended from a couple different times. The most recent one being when Justin came before you and requested the use of gas station being allowed at these commercial sites within the commercial PUD. And it's my understanding that, outside of some of these bigger players within this Walkerview PUD, there hasn't been a whole lot of traction on this site. And so the applicant had approached the city maybe like 6 or 8 months ago, something like that, and asked if there would be support to entertain their particular use, which is what we would call a truck terminal, and I'll get into that a little bit more in a second here. So with the lots, the subject lots I-5, I-6, and I-7, the current land use permitted on those lots is ML, or light industry. And so what's shown here is what's being proposed. So the proposed amendment would allow MH, or heavy industrial uses, on that property. And again, the prospective user is Transport Properties, who would like to propose a truck terminal. And it's my understanding that they would allow for leased storage for trucks and heavy machinery and vehicles, vehicle maintenance, and potentially office uses within a building if they propose one. So, as luck would have it, the zoning ordinance doesn't have a definition of truck terminal. So I had to, look for one that was specific to development. So I grabbed one from the New Illustrated Book of Development Definitions. And it's a use that's expressly named and permitted in the MH zoning district. And what this definition that I pulled from this book is in an area where trucks will load and unload cargo and freight, and where the cargo and freight may be broken down or aggregated into smaller or larger loads for transfer to other vehicles or modes of transportation. And the area highlighted here, I think, aligns with what the prospective user would do. So it would include the storage or parking of trucks awaiting cargo, as well as facilities for servicing of trucks. Storage facilities such as warehouses, incidental to the principal use, may also be a part of the truck terminal. So that's what we've relied on in terms of how do we define what's associated with a truck terminal. Because it's not in the city's zoning ordinance, that definition, doesn't have to be specific to what they plan to do, but I think in a general sense, I think it describes the use as far as what they want to do. So the folks from Transport Properties provided us with a concept plan. And, if you had a chance to look at the concept plan, it's basically just a large parking lot with storage space for large vehicles like semi-trucks and trailers. In looking at some of their materials that they've given us when they introduced the project a while back, they also offer storage space for fleet vehicles and buses and other like heavy equipment. And so this is just the request. We're just looking at the land use itself. The applicant would have to come back to the Planning Commission to request final area site plan approval. And that's where we'll get into a lot more details. So this is a screenshot that I grabbed from their website. And I'll just go to the website really quick because I think it has some good images to kind of give you guys a feel for what they do. So truck and trailer storage, bus and van operations, equipment and materials, fleet maintenance. The applicant's here tonight to talk about whether or not they're proposing any sort of buildings on this particular site. The concept plan doesn't show one. But I just wanted to give you guys these images so that you can see roughly what their site might look like. So the request that they've made is to allow for heavy industrial uses on the subject lots. In doing my analysis of what that might look like, of course I pulled up the range of uses that would be allowed in the heavy industrial zoning district. And I don't know that we want to open up the door to all those uses. And I made a recommendation to keep it specific to this use. Kind of like when we had the gas station, or the amendment where the applicant was asking for the gas station use. The gas station is a use that's permitted in the C4. Did we want to open up the door for all C4 uses? Not really, because that would have brought some other uses that frankly aren't necessarily master planned for that area. So, again, I've made a recommendation to allow just the truck terminal use on the subject lots. And, you know, at this point in time, we're just looking at the land use. When we get to the FASP stage of the review, you know, that's where we would say, hey, are you proposing a building here? And if so, what are the uses planned for the building? I did double check with our building official to see, is a building required? Can we have just a giant parking lot for fleet vehicles and semi-trucks and trailers? And he said yes, or I'm sorry, he said yes, we can have just a parking lot without a building. But we would recommend that the applicant consider placing at least a restroom on the building, or I'm sorry, on the lot. Just, there could be a number of different unintended consequences that might come with facilities like that. Oops. So I'm gonna back up just a second. So we also have a lot of wetlands and some creeks over here, and some steep slopes. And, you know, there's some heavy industrial uses that might not be appropriate to place right next to these really environmentally sensitive areas. And, you know, so that's another reason why I'd like to limit it to just the use that's being looked at. So if you look at the industrial planned unit development and what the intent is, I think the use falls within the intent, but because I don't think that there's going to be a ton of impact on the surrounding properties. It's surrounded by all industrial anyway, but you know, it's not, it doesn't sound like a use that's going to create a lot of external impacts. And so I'm making the recommendation that the Planning Commission approve the amendment to the PASP for Walkerview IPUD. And then I just have some conditions here that the applicant shall return to the Planning Commission for final area site plan review prior to beginning any work on site. And the applicant shall revise the Walkerview PASP to allow the specific truck terminal use in place of all MH uses. And the applicant shall provide one hard copy and one PDF of the approved amended PASP prior to applying for FASP approval. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Tricia. Commissioners, any comments, questions for Tricia at this point? Okay. Scott, you didn't have any comments because there's no official site plan review?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Well, at this point, the applicant, if you come forward and give an opportunity to introduce the project as well.
Sure. Good evening, Justin Longstreth with Bruggink.
Push the button. Sorry.
Justin Longstreth, Bruggink Engineers. Thanks for entertaining this item on the agenda tonight. It's fairly straightforward, I think, in our minds. If there are any engineering questions or Walkerview PUD questions, I'd gladly answer those. Otherwise, I thought it might be beneficial to have Tim from Transport come up and maybe give the Planning Commission a little bit more background on what it is that they do and what the operation would be. But if there's any questions.
That sounds good.
Okay, perfect.
Hi, how are you? Tim McCahill, Principal Transport Properties. We are a outdoor storage, new term, iOS developer throughout the Midwest. We own several properties in the Michigan area and are looking to expand here. And basically what we do is we create secure, very high-end storage facilities for growing industrial areas. With everything that's going on in Walker, your expansive industrial area, the probably 90% chance of who leases this yard is a FedEx, somebody else in this park that needs support, needs month-to-month trailer leasing. That's who we see coming here. I mean, would we put a building on it one day? I know that was addressed. If a user calls for it, we definitely will. You know, on spec and with the way we do it, rather than sit and wait, We'd rather go forward with the land, park it, pave it, and if a large trucking company, a large school bus company, a United Rentals, a Sunbelt Rentals, somebody along those lines that would want a facility here, which without everything going on here, there's a strong likelihood they would, we would, do that. And, as we go forward, I mean, this is probably going to be a best-in-class type of storage facility. When trucks sometimes don't have anywhere to go, they'll often end up in strip malls, they'll end up in vacant properties all over the place. This gives them a place to leave their truck where they know it's secured, there's surveillance, there's lights. We have, camera type systems where a local owner operator in Walker, somebody could leave their truck on a Friday, come back on a Monday and pick it up and know that it's secure. They can look on their cell phone, see it's there. Sometimes, there's big companies coming in such as like Extra Trailer Leasing. You take them with all the stuff going on along your stretch here in Walker, they want to be here to support all these growing businesses. And they average between 4 and 7 trailers in and out per day. Some people see all these spots. Trucks don't want to be on residential roads. They want to be in locations where they can get off the highway and go right away. A lot of the times, equipment will either leave on a Monday and come back on a Friday. So they're, from a traffic generation standpoint, concerns like that, they're far less than any distribution type building, far less than anything like that. So whenever we see big industrial areas, that's where we go and we try to support those businesses, and where it allows somebody who may run out of space to have 20 spots to fill with trailers to support their business that's a block away. So, and we've had great success so far. We have over 60 properties throughout the Midwest, growing pretty fast. And our goal is to always be the best in class. So we don't ask for gravel. We don't ask for anything. I mean, this is a challenge site with severe topo. It's a 25-acre site, but I believe we're paving under 13. And I know this park has sat there for a while. In some of the pictures too on our website, you can view the View Projects tab. You can see that as we've grown in a company, we've always try to do things, we again, berm on the street, put up nice fencing, mature landscaping, do everything we can to make it and if you see from the highway, this is a pretty hidden lot anyway, so if there's anywhere you'd want something like this, it'd be here. And our goal is to always be, do it better than everybody, so.
You said security. Is there going to be a gate on this, or is it just going to be?
Yeah, so there'll be a gate, there'll be a keypad entry system. We'd make sure Walker Police Department has 24-hour access. We have cameras. We'd offer, if anybody wants access, like our users, for example, if FedEx said, hey, we need it, we'd give their security company access to it. Walker Police would have a code, and it's only tenant operated. So if a tenant were to leave, it shuts off. We do everything online. So if somebody signs up online for a spot or 50 spots, they get dedicated key codes. They can control who goes in, who goes out. It's pretty sophisticated technology in terms of security. So we're able to track, if someone says, hey, what time did my truck leave today? We can tell them when it left, show a picture of who was driving the truck, show a picture of the license plate. So we, again, try to go above and beyond so that we go after the highest end type users we can get.
Will there be anybody on site, or not really on site, but nearby to cover any maintenance or any issues that come up?
We have a third-party property management company that we engage in all these properties that does landscaping, that if the gate goes out, they come immediately, because, if a gate doesn't work, you'll get about 200 phone calls in a couple of minutes, of course not that much, but you'll get a lot of phone calls quickly. So we have someone local, we'd hire a local property management company to oversee the project.
What about any cleanup, because there's going to be a lot of gasoline in these vehicles?
So we don't allow any maintenance on the facility unless there is a building. So if there's a maintenance building, we'd have triple catch basins. We do everything per code that Walker would have, but we don't allow any maintenance of any kind on the property per our leases. And again, if anybody was doing it, they'd be reprimanded until they can't do it. So we're pretty cognizant of no outdoor maintenance, and if there was, I said we'd be building the building.
So, how do you make money? You charge so much per space? Is that the way, and how many days you're there, that so many?
We don't really do daily. We do monthly and yearly parking. Ideally, we want one user to take the whole yard, and we charge per acre. But normally how we do it is we'll do per spot. And so if, say, FedEx needs 50 spots, we give them 50 spots at a per spot number. Or if, Joe, the trucker from down the street, needs a secure spot, we'd give him a per spot number. And they'd have, all the spots are numbered so they know where to park. And they'd have a dedicated spot. But yeah, we do a monthly or annual depending on the size of the tenant.
So really, you're just a big parking lot, really, and you have no intention of more buildings and stuff around there?
Well, we would for sure. The challenge with this site is the topo and everything like that. So I mean, ideally, if Sunbelt Rentals came to us and said, hey, we want to build a 20,000 square foot building and keep the yard there, the way we'll structure the site is that we will be prepared to put a building one day. That's what we like about the flexibility of these yards, is that you can add a building if and when a user comes. So even when the yard is developed, we'll keep it on the market and we'll show building renderings available so that we can always continue to market it and wait for that building to come. I mean, our goal ultimately is a long-term lease with the credit tenant. But rather than sit in the dirt and be reactive in the trucking industry, a lot of it is if you build it, they will come. So we want to get it into production versus just having the land stay vacant as it is today.
Just out of curiosity, so you have a code access.
Correct.
So obviously, the driver has to get off the property somehow. So,
Correct.
So the two vehicles come on or through that code? or-
Yeah, so basically what it is we'll have arms that go up and down. At night, the gate shuts because it'll allow for longer access, but we put gate arms so that if someone's coming in, they type their code, and there's a sensor that as soon as the truck goes by, it shuts to avoid like a vehicle following it in. And on the way out, the same thing. You put your gate code in again, and that's part of the tracking software that the companies like to see, so they can know when trucks come in, how long, if they want to know how long that person sat in the lot, they can know how long that, and then you see when they exit. So it's, I don't know if I answered that correctly.
No, I was looking, if I was gonna drop off a truck there and I had to go someplace else, someone else would have to come pick me up. I'm not gonna walk.
A lot of times, if somebody drops a truck off, they'll leave their car in their specific spot. So like if a truck, so like say, you own your own truck and you park it in the spot, you'll go there on a Monday, you'll pull the truck out and you'll put your vehicle in the same parking spot and then you drive out that way. And then if it's for a local area or a local trucking company, they have like the pups, they call them, the shorter trucks that kind of maneuver trailers. Somebody would come in and out all day and move the trailers out to like say FedEx.
Tricia had mentioned, suggested consideration of restroom facilities. What's your experience at your other locations?
We've never really seen the need because most of the people that come are in and out very quickly. Even if it's a single person who parks their truck, they want to go home. If it's somebody that's in the area supporting, just use FedEx as an example because they're next door, they're using their facilities there and they're just coming in and out quickly. We've never seen a need for it, but if it's something the city would prefer, we can discuss it. But as I said, we've never seen it. And normally if someone's going to lease the whole property and say on a 5 or 10 year lease, they're going to want more than just a restroom. They'd want an office type building. They want a repair shop, depending on their business type. We would probably address it at that time.
Okay. In terms of the request that's before us, it's not just looking at trucking facility. It's everything in MH district. Are you okay with the recommendation, or are there any perspective you'd want to offer?
No, we were okay with it. We thought it was fair. We're not looking to do anything, I think there were some heavier uses in there that you brought up to us that I think like auto salvage, stuff like that. We're not looking, we don't want to be an owner of properties like that. We're pretty focused on the transportation, equipment rental, school bus type businesses, and that's what fits into our model. So we're okay with the recommendation by staff.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we open the public hearing.
Very good. Got a motion to open the public hearing.
Support.
Supported by Scott, supporting Tyler's motion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Any public comments? Hearing none?
I'm making a motion to close the public hearing. Support.
Motion by Tyler, supported by Scott, to close the public hearing. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
My comment would be that, Mr. Chair, comments, or, we're not rezoning this to heavy industrial, so we're just restricting it to this use. It's almost like oops, I just lost what I was gonna say. Anyway, a new use for the a use for the property that we only specify.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with it. It falls off at the back there into a valley that has a semi-dry. The only reason I know this is I've hunted this property. So a semi-dry gully, so, but it drops off really hard there, so that's a little bit of a challenge as they do that, but.
Okay.
Kind of go on with what you just said, Tyler, is that, Tricia, maybe this answer, question for you is, instead of a variance or zoning variance, we're going to allow a specific use on this. It sounds like it's kind of falling into the definition of MH, this, and so we're not rezoning it, but we're gonna allow, so, I mean, why wouldn't we go for a zoning request, or a zoning variance?
So it's already zoned IPUD, so we already have some built-in flexibility with the land uses there. And, you know, the recommendation is to allow for light industrial uses and the truck terminal use. The truck terminal use is the only use that falls within that heavy industry category, only because it's expressly named in the zoning ordinance, in that zoning district section. So we wouldn't rezone it. We can still leave it as IPUD. It's just like when we considered allowing the gas station use on those two commercial sites. So as it stood, I think you had this land use table that Justin provided for the commercial PUD. It looked just like this, and it showed those commercial sites being allowed to have C1, C2 uses plus gas station. So it's pretty similar to that, because the zoning is already in place here, but what it was before was allowing only light industrial uses. So like I said, we don't want to open up the door to all heavy industrial uses, but we could allow this one use at this site. And then going forward, 20 years from now, when these guys are out of the business, or, let's say the place closes down, it can be redeveloped under any of the light industry uses.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion. I make a motion to approve the request to amend the Walkerview IPUD PASP to allow for the truck terminal use on lots I-5, I-6, and I-7 located at 1920 Northridge Drive Northwest, subject to the following conditions. Number one, the applicant shall return to the Planning Commission for final area site plan review prior to beginning any work on the site. Number two, the applicant shall revise the Walkerview PASP to allow the specific truck terminal use in place of all MH uses. Number three, the applicant shall provide one hard copy and one PDF of the approved amended PASP prior to applying for the final area site plan approval.
Support. Got a motion by Tyler, supported by Scott, to approve the project as recommended by the planning director. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, the next item on the agenda is case number 22-015. This is as well a public hearing. This is a rezoning request involving a project along Turner Avenue, 2500 Turner Avenue. And look to Tricia as the planning director to introduce the project.
Thanks, Terry. Now that we have this huge crowd here, I'm getting a little nervous. I'm actually surprised that we didn't have more people show up for this meeting, because we had plenty of inquiries. So the request tonight is to review the request to rezone the subject parcels from C2 Community Commercial and MH Heavy Industry to IPUD Industrial Planned Unit Development, and to provide a recommendation to the City Commission for approval or denial of the rezone. The second thing that we're looking at is we're reviewing the preliminary area site plan for the Turner North Industrial Development, as it's been named, and to grant approval with or without conditions, tabling, or denial of the requests. And so we have 3 parcels that are associated with the request. And those would be 2500 Turner Avenue, 2574 Hillside Drive, 2621 West River Drive. And these have been identified on the plan as parcels A, B, and C. Total, the subject parcels come out to 18.85 total acres. And there's only one small piece that's zoned MH, and there's a portion of one of the parcels that's zoned MH. And so the goal is to rezone all of them to clean up the zoning and allow for light industrial uses on the sites. Future land use designation is enterprise. And the general location is on the north side of West River Drive at the Turner Avenue West River Drive intersection. And we have Heath Baxter and Greg Bull from Visser Brothers with us tonight. So I'm just going to get into the request and what the process looks like a little bit. So the rezone request, the Planning Commission makes a recommendation, and then, as you know, the City Commission holds 2 readings of the rezone request and approves it or denies it at the second reading. The PASP review, the Planning Commission is the last stop. That one does not go to the City Commission. And if the PASP is approved tonight, then its effectiveness won't kick in until after the rezone has been approved. So just taking a look at the site plan, they've broken out their development into 2 phases, phases 1 and 2. So phase 1 consists of the existing Deltaplex building, and what their plan is to break it out into what's shown here as 3 tenant suites that may or may not change going forward. But the way it's been proposed right now is three tenant suites, and it sounds like they have some. And so what they would like to do in phase 1 is get this building renovated, make some modifications to the parking lot, and, you know, add landscaping, lighting, and any other things that would be needed for improvements to that site to get it to where they need it to be to make it functional for an industrial site. So as you know, they'll have to come back to the Planning Commission for final area site plan. In fact, I think we received your application today. And so they'll be back at the 7/20 meeting for you to consider the first phase FASP. Then the second phase would consist of probably a large industrial building. You know, at this stage of the game, it's kind of more of a concept. But I think what they've done here is they've shown like the maximum size of a building they could possibly have to be able to maximize and utilize the space as best they can. One good thing about what's being proposed here is the design and how most of the loading, unloading, and truck maneuvering is proposed to be on this side of the site, because as you know, over on this side of Hillside Drive, we have some residential zoning. So the design that they've proposed here, I think, is being sensitive to the neighbors, and that kind of mitigates some of the issues that you might have with compatibility. So phase 2, I think it's kind of unclear when they'll come back for final area site plan, but obviously when they get to that point, they'll come back to the Planning Commission for that. So the first request, when we look at the rezone requests, We have a series of criteria or kind of a rezoning checklist that we typically use. And I'm just going to highlight some of the ones that we have in that list. And so obviously we're going to be looking at the range of uses. They're proposing an IPUD. Are the range of uses that are permitted within an IPUD acceptable for this particular site? We've determined that it would be, that those uses would be appropriate, especially given the design that we just talked about. Are public utilities readily available? This one is pretty easy. Yes, they are. Another big one is alignment with the master plan. So the master plan calls for enterprise, which is the equivalent of industrial when it comes to zoning. And so we believe that the proposed zoning district is very well aligned with what the master plan is calling for this area. And it's also surrounded by industrial, heavy industrial, and some other light industrial. Is it spot zoning? No, this is not spot zoning because obviously it aligns with the goals and vision of our master plan, and it's not industrial right in the middle of a sea of residential. And then also we're looking at compatibility. Are the range of uses in the IPUD compatible with the surrounding land uses, particularly with residential? So again, the design of the site is going to play a big role here, but if you look at the previous use and how compatible that was with the surrounding residential, I don't know. I kind of have a feeling that an industrial use might be a less impactful use than the entertainment venue that was there previously. And so to answer the question, is the proposed district better suited for the area? In my opinion, I believe it is. You know, just based on the fact that you have that big platted area to the north, and the previous zoning district, C2, obviously allows for entertainment venues, and there's a lot of noise that's generated from a site like the Deltaplex. So I think that the rezone, it aligns with the master plan, and it's moving this area of the city into sort of the implementation stage of our master planning process. And just a few notable improvements that are shown on the plan, on the PASP. So they plan to fill in a lot of sidewalk gaps around that whole little Hillside West River Drive node. This area falls within the sidewalk improvement zone within the master plan. And so we're happy with their willingness to help us out with that. And the other thing is that the entire site is going to contain some landscaping for screening and aesthetics on all street frontages. So that's something that the current state of the site doesn't really have. And so that's going to be a huge improvement to that little corner. And I think that some traffic circulation will be improved by the way that they have the driveways configured. They're also proposing to remove one of the driveways that goes out to West River Drive. There's also a weird approach that I think was from when, I don't know, from before West River Drive was aligned, and it's just kind of an approach to nowhere, so that's being removed as well. So again, looking at PASP in terms of process, you know, this is a high level review of the concept plan, essentially, of the PUD plan. And so at this stage of the review, we're looking at the plan and looking for it to be setting some dimensional minimums and maximums, you know, setbacks, height, things like that. Determining permitted land uses. So this is the stage where we say, okay, these are the land uses that would be permitted on this site in accordance with the light industrial uses, or in accordance with the light industrial zoning district section. I don't have any specific recommendations for limiting or prohibiting any land uses. I think that the range of land uses is really going to open the door to a lot of different things that wouldn't have otherwise been permitted in the C2 zoning district. So I think we're good in terms of locking in the land uses. And we're, as I stated earlier, the approval of the PASP is contingent on the City Commission's approval of the rezone. And I've already stated this, but each phase is required to come back to PC for final area site plan review. So my recommendation is for the Planning Commission to forward a favorable recommendation to the City Commission for the rezone of parcels A, B, and C associated with Turner North. And I'm also recommending that the PASP be approved subject to the conditions that I have here that I assume will. And then, as you know, we'll be doing 2 separate motions.
Thank you, Tricia. Any questions? Okay. We'll move to Scott Connors, City Engineer.
So from an engineering perspective, the phase 1 part of the site's pretty straightforward. There's the buildings, they're going to break that up into different components on the inside, different tenants. We would expect maybe some overhead doors or something, but I think we can work with the improvements they proposed to go along with that. Pretty comfortable. When they get to phase 2, then we'll talk about a few more adjustments, certainly bringing the stormwater into compliance down there from a quality standpoint. You may remember when the Vans was approved to the south, their little transit center there. We talked a lot about the drainage and how there are some restrictions downstream, so we've got to be careful that we keep that in mind. One change that I'd like to see from this picture, I think it shows it pretty well, is the parking lot around phase 2. Something to talk about now so that we have an idea when we're dealing with them when they come in for the final area site plan is to maybe connect that with the eastern side of the parcel. If you think about a car or maybe a truck that wanders down there, which that's going to happen, it's inevitable, and there's no way to turn around, there's nowhere to go. If that was just connected, it would make it a whole lot easier and they could have great circulation. So we'd be looking for something like that, or they could just keep that driveway that's proposed immediately to the south. We don't love that location, but we want to make sure there's 2 ways in and out of such a big parking lot like that. So that's something to consider, really more for next time. And then lastly, when this whole roadway was reconfigured back in 1996, there was a young engineer in here with great flowing hair. He's pretty green. So what we're trying to do is follow up on a lot of the things that were done back then with the right-of-way. This is really our last chance to clean it up. So we've sent this to one of our consultants and said, hey, please take a look at all of the easements, all of the right-of-way, and let's make sure that everything was recorded that was supposed to be recorded. Because we do have a few ghosts like that back in our history where something gets worked out and it's approved, but the document never makes it down to the county to get recorded. So this is our last chance to do that, and I don't suspect that we're going to have any trouble, because if we find something, you guys are great partners and we'll just get it taken care of, but now's the time. And that's it for now.
Huh?
A ghost?
A lost truck? Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? Okay. This is we'll have the applicant come forward, please, and if you have any comments to offer.
There we go. All right. So my name's Greg Ball. I'm with Visser Brothers. Heath Baxter is with Visser Brothers as well. Thanks to you guys for hearing us out tonight. And thanks to Tricia and Scott for their thorough review of the project. I don't have a ton to add. We thought this is a great site. We're trying to think a little bit out of the box just because there's not a lot of vacant land anymore, especially in Walker, which is a city we love to work in. People businesses love to be here. We love to develop. So this site kind of came to mind. We thought there's a big parking lot there that could have a building on it someday, and we can fill the existing building with some tenants, and it could be a good project. So as Tricia mentioned, we do plan on splitting it into 3 tenant sections, if you will, or spaces. It's not really that involved. There's have to secure a few doors that kind of intersect between those spaces to make it secure for each tenant. Yeah, I mean, that's about all I have. We're fine. I think the building we have on parcel B now, maybe we've altered a little bit even since we sent this plan in. No issues with connecting that drive. I mean, all that can be talked about down the road. But in terms of when we think parcel B will be developed, our guess would be maybe within 2 years. It's going to depend on the economy and the demand. We thought our development on Northridge, where Amazon and everything was going to take us about 10 years, and it took us 3 to fill it up. So you never know. But we perceive that to be a couple years down the road before we build there. So, and we're open to any questions you might have for us.
With regard to the existing building on parcel A, there's loading docks on the west side of that building. You've laid out where I believe in truck docks are going to be located. Do you foresee needing or desiring to use those truck docks on the west side?
So in the back of the building, right?
Back
I get
of the building.
that site, my direction on that site is horrible, but the ones in the back,
Yep.
I would say they'll be used extremely infrequently to 0. We'll put the new ones in for the big tenant that's going to go in the arena space, if you will. They'll have new docks up front, provided it gets approved in the FASP, but they'll basically exclusively use those front docks. The tenant in the back, top, I don't know what, so if that's west, northwest, maybe. That's a distributor of pumps and PVC pipe and that sort of thing. They're actually in one of the other buildings we own. Everything for the most part that they get for deliveries is on a truck that they don't need to use a dock. So they'll just go in that side yard and unload that way. So they won't be used, long story short, they won't be used a lot.
Well,
And they're not easy to get to either, honestly. It's horrible for trucks to try to pack into those things, so.
yeah, and it's probably had limited use over the last several years as well, but it is it's a point of interfacing with the residential area.
Yep.
And the landscaping along that stretch, as well as putting, by and large, most of the, if not all, the loading docks on the other side of the building, the front side onto Turner.
Yep.
That seems to be a good fit there, and to the extent that you can really reduce or eliminate the activity along that backside would be desirable.
Yep, understood.
If there's no other questions,
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
got a motion by Tyler, supported by Scott to open the public hearing. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Public comment?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Support.
Motion by Tyler, supported by Scott to close the public hearing. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Scott, any?
Just from the outset, I mean, I think it's a pretty good project. I think it's split up, or the concept as it is here is, fairly straightforward. Don't really have any issues with anything as it's presented now. I do like that they have the change where a lot of the loading and unloading will be facing away from the current residential. I like that, and other changes that have been discussed tonight. I think it's a good project. And as far as the rezone, I'd be comfortable moving forward with a favorable recommendation.
Ditto. I mean, it's a good project. I love the landscaping because that lot is so bare, so it'll look nice, even though there'll be a building on it, but it'll still look nice. It's no problems.
I'll agree with them. I have three other issues. I guess that's the south entrance on the, if this is cockeyed or whatever. That entrance on the other side of the building where you get the ghost trucks there, yeah, right there. I think that needs to go through, or they have to circle the building completely. It's got to be one or the other, because you get a truck down there and then he's got to back out, 600 feet. Wow. Second comment is this is industrial against residential, which I don't like, ever, but it's already there. Stadium Arena, or the Deltaplex, whatever you want to call it, the Deltaplex already sits in kind of in a hole, so there's already a little bit of a barrier, but I think enhancement of the buffer zone, especially when you come to that phase 3 or 2, the parcel B, that there's got to be buffers towards the residential. I'm shocked that nobody showed up tonight, because they've shown up for other things on that neighborhood. And the last comment's a little bit of criticism for the applicant. Turner North? I mean, come on. Why not, like, Delta Stadium Complex?
Well, because I was getting so many calls from the media, I was trying to come up with something that hopefully they were gonna miss.
Okay.
That's why I said that.
Okay, that, just a comment.
We don't like the limelight.
No.
With respect to the rezoning, I think it's appropriate. I think that the rationale that Trish has described is right on in terms of how it fits in with the area and how it provides more flexibility in its use. And I think the comment that Scott made and Tyler, I think, underscored it in terms of that the building for parcel B. And I think the applicant also acknowledged that changes there to, if it's going to circulate around there, I think you'd put what was the biggest you could put on there and get the balance, and then size it according to the users that come in. But that circulation around, you need to have that movement within the site and have that going in both directions. So those are my comments.
I'm in favor of the rezone. I don't think I really have anything else to add, so I'll pass it on.
Yeah, it sounds okay to me.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion on the rezone, case number 22-015, 2500 Turner Avenue Northwest, Turner North. I make a motion to forward a recommendation to the City Commission for the approval of the request to rezone the parcels listed below from C2 and MH to IPUD, based on the findings detailed in the Planning Director's report dated 6/6/22. Address 2500 Turner Northwest, Parcel A, 4113-12, 12906, parcel number, zoning C2 to proposed zoning IPUD. 2574 Hillside Drive Northwest, Parcel B, parcel number 4113-12, 17705, C2/MH to IPUD, and 2621 West River Drive Northwest, Parcel C, parcel number 4113-12, 12907, C2 to IPUD.
Support. Aye.
Make a motion for case number 22015, 2500 Turner Avenue Northwest, Turner North, PSP review. I make a motion to approve the preliminary site plan for Turner North located at 25 Turner Avenue Northwest, Parcel A, 2574 Hillside Drive Northwest, Parcel B, and 2621 West River Drive Northwest, Parcel C, per the plan set, last revision dated.
There wasn't a last revision date on the plan, so that's one of the things that we'll have to have.
Last revision dated as of this meeting, subject to the following conditions. The approval of the PSP shall not take effect until after the city commission approves the rezone request from C2 and MH to IPUD. The applicant shall address all items outlined in the city engineer's report dated 6/6/22. The applicant shall add a final revision date on the plan set for planning commission review. Number 4, the applicant shall provide 3 sealed sets of the civil engineered plans incorporating the recommended revisions to the community development department prior to the applying for final area site plan review for phase 1 of the development.
Second.
Okay, motion by Tyler, supported by Scott to approve the site plan.
Aye.
Hey, one question. So does this automatically go to the city commission agenda, or do I have to apply for that?
No, you don't have to apply for it. I'll just have to set a date for when that's gonna be. So they meet on the opposite weeks from the planning commission. So, it's not a public hearing, so I don't have to, give a bunch of, notice, to the paper or anything like that. So, I'll send you an email and solidify the dates for you.
I think I'll show my age here. If I remember that property, before me, it was a roller rink. And then it was, I think, Arlen's comes to name. It was Atlantic Mills, there you go. And it had that roof, and it had to be held up by all those steel girders. And then, I don't know when Deltaplex.
Yeah, the Quonset hut, and then when they made the Deltaplex, they put up walls around it.
Is that what they did?
Yeah.
I remember going in there when it was Atlantic Mills.
So we are in the process of drafting a development agreement, or what we're probably going to do is what's called a memorandum of understanding. So we're in the process of drafting that. We waited a really long time for them to send us their proposed construction schedule, because we needed that schedule to be able to tie certain things to certain events or certain parts of the development that needed to be done. What we wanted to do was tie occupancy of the apartment buildings to some of the off-site improvements. So it's kind of in limbo with drafting the agreement. But as soon as that's all ready to go, I think they're ready to roll, unless Scott has any other
Yeah. I think
info.
Behind the scenes, there's some problems too with all the hundreds of details that have to happen, right down to the schedule that is almost impossible. They've got some things listed in there that are gonna be really tough to get to, and then paving in late November of the public road, and we know around here the plants close November 15th for the most part. So we're working through some of those issues too, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they just said, we're gonna start in the spring. Because right now they're saying they're gonna start the minute they get a chance, but it's not it's not urgent at getting at some of these details, which is really gonna hurt them.
Next meeting, we have a U-Haul interior access self-storage facility proposed in the Avastar Parkway, or Avastar PUD, and car wash that's proposed within the Westtown PUD, and then we also have Heartland Dental that's going to be returning to us. They were supposed to return to us at this meeting, and that's why we only had 2 items. But, in reviewing their plan, there was still quite a few things that they neglected to address. So we said, get it fixed, then we can stick you on an agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'll be gone on the second meeting in July. So,
We also have that meeting fully booked, the second meeting in July. That one will have a project called Vista 45, which is essentially a mirroring of West Town, but on the property that's situated behind Meyer and along Lake Michigan Drive. Yep, so multifamily and commercial outlots. We have that. We also have a gas station that's a it's called Pacific Pride, if you're familiar with that. Proposed over on 3 Mile. Jack Dykstra Excavating is splitting off a piece of his property and is working with a gentleman from Pacific Pride for the self-service gas station. And then what else? We have one more thing. Oh, Heath already dropped off an application for final area site plan for phase 1 of Turner North. And then August 3rd, we have another multifamily development, which is proposed on the Lewis Farms site. So they're proposing to rezone the property. It's currently zoned MPUD, and they'll need to change it to RPUD 1, I think. And then also they have a CPUD component that they're going to ask for as well, because they have a commercial user for the corner of that Leonard and Wilson. So perhaps. Yep. And then just to give you an update on what's happening with the Green Ridge project, or River Ridge, the applicant held their neighborhood meeting, and we've heard mixed things about how the meeting went, and we have a site visit that you should have all received an invitation to, so we'll be holding a site visit next Monday, and then we'll follow that up with a work session, and we're hoping to potentially just kind of throw around some ideas to help the developer get this project to a place that everybody can be okay with it. No guarantees on getting there, but it could be. It just depends. You know, we've thrown out some alternative concepts to the applicant. And so obviously they need to do some due diligence on some ideas that we've pitched to them, to see if it's feasible, to see if, you know, if the market has a demand for, you know, a different type of product, and all kinds of stuff like that. But so we'll see where it goes. They seem willing to work with us as long as they can get their number of units that they're looking to get, and you know, obviously make a profit from the project. But they also want to, you know, make a nice. They also want to create a nice project for the city. So that's kind of where we're at.
Quick question on the roundabout right by the new Starbucks there. Is there gonna be any signage up? Because I've gone through there a couple of times and nobody's using the backside, but everybody's just kind of cutting in and out. Nobody's really.
I've never seen anybody use it the right way.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly. I was wondering if there's any signs to.
including myself.
So we
I've
brought,
done it too.
it's private. It's 100% private.
Oh, it is, okay,
So we,
yeah,
we
yeah.
brought that up the last time, I think it was when Starbucks came in, we said, you've got to add something there. We can't keep looking the other way. And so there was some signage that was supposed to be added. I see that they put a planter in the middle. But it's like a lot of these roundabouts that you see on private property, and people don't know how to use them. There's one over at Forest Hills northern school that I wonder how an entire school can navigate through these barrier divider islands and stuff and figure it all out, but they're everywhere.
What's interesting too is watching people see the Starbucks and the Chick-fil-A as they're sitting there, gonna turn left, like, I wanna turn in there, I can't turn in there. So they go down Wilson and they do a U-E right in front of Meyer, and then come back down and then pull into the, I'm like, it's kinda crazy.
And those were a lot of the warnings that we provided to them. We said, you know, your access is gonna be a little bit from one side or one direction. And they didn't care. They were, get us in here, get us in here. So you'll probably see a little bit more of that as we look at the west side where we have a few lessons learned.
The right in, right out is still anybody in, anybody out. Right now, the Meyer parking lot is the same thing. You see people pulling in, I'm like, don't pull in front of me. You can't pull in this.
I'm guilty of taking a left onto the service road from the gas station.
I like to drive that. I come in off of Mullins, I come up the back way there. It's like, I don't even go up to Wilson. That one's kind of nice.
Well, I'll make a motion to adjourn.